Anyone who can't speak is not family. I'll give it to the old hag. Get out.
What are you doing? I pushed aside my son and daughter-in-law, embraced my granddaughter, who was holding her cheek in pain, and glared at them. My unrepentant son and daughter-in-law continued to berate their speech-impaired daughter. Unable to bear it any longer, I made the decision to raise my granddaughter myself and took her home. 10 years later, when we returned to the U.S. after living overseas, my son and daughter-in-law appeared.
I wanted to see you. Aren't we family? Let's live together.
A fool is not family, so please leave.
My name is Lisa Brown, a 60-year-old homemaker. A few years ago, I lost my husband, and now I live alone in a spacious house. Although I considered living with my son Lucas and his wife Isabella, I decided against it. We don't seem to get along well, and there's a possibility I'd end up helping out at their pub. Besides, my body doesn't move like it used to in my younger days, and embarrassingly, I'm not good at customer service. Living and working together would likely create stress for both of us. So, I made the judgment that it's better not to live together. Even after my husband's passing, Lucas never broached the topic of living together. I appreciated that. I thought I'd enjoy my time alone, free from childcare and caring for my late husband. But when I actually started living alone, it felt lonelier than I expected. I, who was always busy with household chores and childcare, had no hobbies or friends. I spent my days watching reruns of TV dramas. Even when I tried to adopt new habits, they never stuck. For me, the presence of my two granddaughters makes a huge difference. Mia, the eldest, is 10 years old, and Charlotte, the younger one, is 6. Both girls are incredibly adorable. Mia was beautiful and skilled at seeking comfort from adults. On the other hand, Charlotte was a bit clumsy and reserved. She felt lonely compared to her beautiful and affectionate older sister. Although I love both of them, I particularly sided with Charlotte because I could see that she was disliked by her parents and sister. My son and daughter-in-law visit with my grandchildren about once every 2 months. Mia would run up to me innocently, calling, "Grandma!" Her clothes were always new, and her long hair was neatly tied. In contrast, Charlotte's clothes were hand-me-downs from Mia, worn and tattered. Her hair was left untamed and messy. Charlotte used to love chatting when she first learned to speak, but lately, she has become quiet and wears a somber expression, unlike Mia's cheerful smile. After greeting Mia with a warm welcome, I crouched down in front of Charlotte. "Charlotte, welcome! Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Today, I've prepared your favorite candy. Let's enjoy them together."
Yeah.
Mia chimed in.
Grandma, what about my candy?
"Of course, I have some for you too. Come on, let's go." As I held hands with my granddaughters, my son and daughter-in-law stepped out of the car and greeted me.
Mom, it's been a while. Here's a souvenir.
Oh, thank you. Are both of you doing well? Take your time and relax.
Thank you, Mom.
I welcomed my son's family into the house, serving tea and snacks as a gracious host. My son and daughter-in-law chatted mostly with Mia, ignoring Charlotte. Whenever I addressed Charlotte, Mia would interrupt, or Lucas and Isabella would change the topic. I had been concerned about their attitude toward Charlotte, but I decided not to interfere too much. Little did I know that I would come to regret that choice. One day, I had made plans to visit my son and daughter-in-law's house. I brought along candy that my son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren liked. As I reached their home, I extended my hand to ring the doorbell, but at that moment, I heard Lucas's angry voice from inside.
Why don't you say something instead of staying silent?
Startled, I placed my hand on the doorknob, and the door easily swung open. Without hesitation, I walked inside, realizing that the voices were coming from the second floor.
Because you don't talk at school, I end up feeling embarrassed.
As I climbed the stairs, the shouting continued, and eventually, I heard a sharp, dry sound. When I opened the door to the room where the noise came from, I found Lucas, Isabella, and Mia berating Charlotte, who was sitting on the floor. Charlotte, her face on the verge of tears, held her cheek, while Mia winced, shaking her hand.
Hey, Charlotte, did Mia hit you? Even saying it hurts would be something, right? Someone who can't speak isn't family. I'll give it to the old hag. Get out!
What are you all doing? Pushing past my son, daughter-in-law, and Mia, I embraced Charlotte, who was sitting on the floor, as if to protect her, and glared at them. The three of them momentarily looked surprised, but quickly regained their composure.
Mom, what are you doing barging in like that? You should have rung the doorbell first.
Exactly. Isn't that rude?
Who's being rude here? Surrounding a young child and showering her with insults. Lucas, you're her father, aren't you? Aren't you ashamed to treat your child roughly? And Mia, why did you hit your sister? I raised my voice, scolding Mia for the first time. She flinched momentarily.
But
She lowered her head. Isabella pulled Mia close, hugging her protectively.
Don't blame Mia.
She glared at me. I met her gaze firmly. Supporting Mia, who had hit her sister, was not the right response for a mother. Watching this scene, Lucas pointed at me and shouted.
What are you thinking, Mom? Stay away from that fool.
The real fool is all of you. Apologize to Charlotte.
Ha. Who's going to apologize?
Neither Lucas nor Isabella nor Mia showed any signs of remorse. They mercilessly berated Charlotte. In my arms, she looked vacant, weakly gripping my clothes. Without overthinking it, I lifted Charlotte and declared, I'll raise her. She won't stay here. Leaving the astonished trio behind, I stormed out of the room. Lucas, who had been standing there dumbfounded, ran up with a smirk.
Mom, you're a lifesaver. I had no idea how to handle her anymore.
As I rolled my eyes at my son's words, Isabella appeared from behind. She clutched a tattered small suitcase and a school backpack.
These are Charlotte's belongings. Take care of her from now on.
With that, Isabella roughly handed over the bags. Charlotte and I both looked up at my son and daughter-in-law. Clearly, they were delighted that Charlotte was leaving the house. I left the house without saying anything, utterly exasperated. Both of us returned home in silence. As I stepped into the entrance, I gestured for Charlotte to come inside. She sniffled and wiped her nose. Peering into Charlotte's face, I saw her biting her lip, tears streaming down. I hugged her tightly, soothingly patting her back. Charlotte, you've been through so much. I'm sorry I couldn't help you until now. But it's going to be okay. From now on, Grandma is on your side. I'll protect you. And so, I began living with Charlotte. Perhaps due to the wounds inflicted by her parents, she doesn't speak. Even attempting a simple good morning doesn't yield any words. According to her school teacher, she can't communicate with classmates or teachers either. Worried, I took her to the hospital for an examination. The diagnosis: selective mutism. The doctor speculated that the intense stress from her parents and sister had caused severe anxiety and fear, rendering her unable to speak. Now that her environment has changed, with time, she might eventually find her voice again. On my way back from the hospital, I bought a cute notebook and pen for Charlotte. All right, Charlotte. If you ever want to convey something to me or anyone else, write it down in this notebook or draw pictures. And little by little, practice saying the written words out loud to communicate with others. I explained. Charlotte promptly opened the notebook and began writing with the pen. As I silently watched, she showed me the page. It read, "Thank you, Grandma," along with a drawing of my face. Charlotte opened her mouth, attempting to say thank you and mustering the courage to speak. But her voice didn't come out, and she sadly closed her mouth, looking down. "You're doing great, Charlotte. Let's keep practicing little by little. Well done. Full marks," I praised, gently patting her head. She looked up, revealing a faint smile. With the notebook and pen I had given her, Charlotte started communicating at school as well. Perhaps gaining confidence, she gradually started speaking, and 2 years later, she could converse normally. Charlotte would come home from school and immediately share her day's events with me.
Grandma, today at school.
Seeing her lively and well-adjusted, I felt a deep sense of relief. One day, I visited the school for a parent-teacher-student conference. As I entered the classroom, a kind teacher greeted me. Charlotte and I both greeted the teacher and took our seats. While discussing my granddaughter's school life and home situation, Charlotte squirmed shyly. The teacher then showed us Charlotte's academic progress. The graph had been steadily rising since she started living with me, and now it shot up significantly. I believe this is because she's so diligent in her studies. Lately, she's been reading challenging books and practicing problems every day, I said, patting Charlotte's head. Since she started speaking, she had become increasingly studious. At home, she tackled difficult books and proudly showed me her perfect test papers. I framed each one and displayed them on the wall, beaming with pride. The teacher suggested an IQ test at the hospital. An IQ test? I asked. The teacher replied,
Charlotte shows a high potential for being gifted.
Gifted refers to children with innate high abilities. Charlotte's intelligence seems to rival that of adults. Given her remarkable talent, it's essential to provide an educational environment that matches her abilities. So, I promptly took Charlotte to the hospital for an IQ test. As predicted by her school teacher, she turned out to be gifted. I couldn't contain my surprise at discovering such wonderful abilities in my granddaughter. When I asked her about school, she responded disinterestedly.
Honestly, it's too easy and boring. I want more challenging studies. But if I tell the teacher, it becomes complicated.
Her words left me pondering. Could Charlotte pursue the studies she desires here in this town? She likely aims for middle or high school level material. Could she handle that while still in elementary school? I consulted the teacher, who informed me about French schools that accommodate accelerated learning. Apparently, France might offer the challenging studies Charlotte craves. It occurred to me that my late husband's brother worked in France. Although we hadn't been in touch since his passing, I thought he might be able to help. I reached out to him, and he assured me he could support us during our time in France. Relieved, I suggested studying abroad in France to Charlotte.
I'd like to go if you're with me. But I want to wait until after graduating from elementary school.
All right, understood. Until you graduate, I'll make sure to learn some French too. With that settled, Charlotte smiled, reassured. She created many memories during elementary school and successfully graduated. She exchanged contact information, allowing her to connect with friends even overseas. I kept the study abroad plans a secret from my son and daughter-in-law. After all, if they discovered their gifted daughter was studying abroad, they might try to reclaim her for their own purposes. Charlotte quickly adapted to life in France and skipped ahead in her studies. Seeing her happily talk about how much she enjoys learning, I knew coming to France had been the right decision. Her talent is truly remarkable. After studying abroad in France for a few years, she enrolled at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom, where she studied business. And then, she went on to start her own company. Charlotte is determined to repay me. But honestly, I've already received more than enough. After all, she has grown into an impressive adult under my care. Her achievements have made headlines in France and spread worldwide, likely making her a well-known figure even in the United States. I wonder what my son and daughter-in-law think of her success. If only they regretted their past mistreatment of her. 10 years after Charlotte started her company, she and I returned to the United States for work. We rented a new apartment and settled into our lives. One day, the apartment intercom buzzed. Assuming it was a circular notice, I opened the door without any caution. To my surprise, it was my son and daughter-in-law.
Long time no see, Mom. How have you been?
Lucas and Isabella, why are you here? Despite changing my contact information and living far from our previous home, they found me. Ignoring my astonishment, Isabella spoke up.
Hey, is Charlotte here? I've come to see you after a long time.
What business do you have? Don't get near her.
Don't be so cold, Mom. We're Charlotte's parents.
Exactly, Mom. Charlotte is here, right? Please let us meet her.
Stop barging in! Before I could stop them, they pushed past me and entered the house. As I tried to hold them back, Charlotte peeked out from the living room.
What's going on, Grandma? Wait, huh?
Even Charlotte seemed surprised by the sudden visitors. Feeling awkward, I averted my gaze. Meanwhile, my son and daughter-in-law finally met Charlotte, looking delighted.
Oh, Charlotte, I've missed you. You've grown so much.
When Isabella tried to hug her, Charlotte shrugged off her arms.
If you want to talk, let's do it in the living room. I'll prepare tea. Please wait on the sofa.
With that chilly remark, Charlotte headed to the kitchen to make tea. My son and daughter-in-law plopped down on the sofa without hesitation, sharing memories with Charlotte. Concerned, I asked her what was going on, and she winked, signaling that she had it under control. As we sat face to face, they got straight to the point. The pub my son and daughter-in-law managed had closed due to financial troubles. And Mia, Charlotte's sister, had lost contact after getting a job. They didn't know where she was or what she was doing. Now unemployed, my son and daughter-in-law were struggling financially, unsure when their savings would run out. My son pleaded desperately.
Charlotte, won't you support us? You left home at 6, but until then, we raised you. Show some filial piety.
Isabella joined in.
Charlotte, you must have missed us all these years. Let's live together now. We'll make memories as a family to compensate for the time apart.
Helpless and embarrassed by my son and daughter-in-law's clinginess, I couldn't bear to watch. How did my son turn out like this? Where did I go wrong in raising him? Charlotte's voice snapped me back to reality.
I decline. A fool isn't family. My family consists of only Grandma. Please take your leave.
She wore an unfamiliar, icy smile. My son persisted.
But Charlotte, wait.
Yet Charlotte remained unmoved by their pleas. She forcibly closed the door, locking it with a decisive click. Through the window, I watched my son and daughter-in-law leave, shoulders slumped in defeat.
Grandma,
What is it?
should we move here?
With those words, she smiled. When I asked about her plans, it turned out she had secretly been planning to build a house for us to live in. The design was tailored for my needs, with barrier-free features. Thank you, Charlotte, I said, and she blushed, smiling. A few months later, we moved into our new home. Thanks to Charlotte's thoughtful design, I lived comfortably. Memories adorned the walls, including the notebook and pen I bought when we first started living together. Whenever I looked at it, tears of gratitude welled up. Today, I'll cook Charlotte's favorite meal. That's what I decided as I began preparing in the kitchen.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time.